Thanks for listening. I'm Wendy Carrillo, and this is Knowledge is Power on Power 106. You can follow me on Twitter at Wendy Carrillo, and you can get a podcast of the show available on my blog on power106.com. According to the Pew Hispanic Center, there are currently 51.9 million Latinos living in the United States, and I'm only rounding up the number. Of these, 33.5 million identify as Mexican, 4.9 million as Puerto Rican, 1.9 million as Salvadorian, I'm one of those 1.9 million, 1.8 million as Cuban, and 1.6 million as Guatemalan. And these are just the top 5. With that said, it's not surprising to think that throughout history, the contributions of Latinos to culture, politics, the arts, the sciences, and various other fields have been of significant importance. To amplify the contributions of Latinos in the United States, there is a growing desire to create the first American Latino Museum in our nation's capital. To tell us more about this endeavor is the executive director of the Friends of the National Museum of the American Latino, Estuardo Rodriguez. Thanks so much for being on the show, Estuardo.
Thank you, Wendy, for inviting me, and I was hoping that you were going to get down to the 0.5 million that were Peruvian. That's my background, so...
That's like all the way
any minute now.
All the way down.
That's, say it.
That's all the way down the list.
Is it? All right, we'll gloss over that. But their impact is huge.
Yes, it is. And you are leading this national effort. Tell us all about what it means to go around the country and talk to various different communities about the need for a museum that's dedicated toward the American Latino.
Well, it's a responsibility that I rarely sit back and take in because we're always moving so quickly. But when I do, it's incredible the opportunity that I've been given in my team. I've got a great team at my firm, the Raven Group, that has been working on this for the last, I guess, going on 7 years now. Congressman Javier Becerra, Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Slaton, here a bipartisan effort, the word bipartisan that we don't hear too much in DC.
Right.
But this one definitely has a bipartisan backing, and we have been traveling for the last few years to all of the annual conferences that NCLR has or LULAC has, the larger Latino convenings. And while it is the choir, it's not always a friendly choir, because wherever you go, we have found that there's a very strong and personal identity of what it is to be Latino in New York, in Miami, Los Angeles, in different parts of Texas. So part of our effort is definitely educating the community on why this museum is important. But the other part that is much more important for us is listening to them, listening to the Latino communities across the country, how they see themselves, how they see their history, and how they see the impact and how intertwined or interwoven their story is in the building of this nation. So I have had an amazing history class for the last few years. I've learned so much about not only the Latino story, but just American history. It's been incredible.
I can imagine that Latino identity across the country is just very, very different, right? So some people say, I'm not Latino, I'm Chicano, I'm not Chicano, I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican-American, I'm this, I'm that. How do you foresee showcasing the various different identities of what it means to be an American, quote-unquote, Latino in the United States and the history that brings?
We do it very carefully, very cautiously, right? We depending on where we go, we already have a sense, right? You already know that if you're going to present some major event in New York, that 9 out of 10 of the people that are Latino there are going to be Puerto Rican, probably, right? And so there's an understanding that wherever we go, we have a sense of what's the predominant community there, but to illustrate some of the differences that come out, I will point to our social media pages. So Facebook, for me, has been such an incredible learning tool, not only for the people that we reach out to, because we post little historic factoids, and we often get teachers that respond and provide a comment saying, wow, I didn't know this, I'm going to include this in my lesson plan this week, or something along those lines. Or just individuals who say, I'm going to give this to my niece so she can learn about our history. But we put things out there, and it's incredible with 129, almost 130,000 followers on Facebook, 150,000 on Twitter. The community self-polices. At some point, sooner or later, someone says, we're not Latino or we're not Hispanic. Those are terms placed on us. And then begins the whole fight. And with over 129,000 people that are watching and seeing these comments, sooner or later, people get into these back and forths. But what has been wonderful for us is that it is self-policing, and at the end of that long chain of controversial statements back and forth, there's a call for unity. There's always someone who says, relax, people. We're in this together. We've got to get this museum built because it will reflect all of our individual stories. And that goal is so much more important than fighting today about our differences when we don't even have somewhere to showcase all of those differences.
So I'd imagine that along with those conversations is also the conversation of like, why do we even need a museum to begin with? And I know that this, if it all goes approved and everything works out nicely the way that we all envision that it would, this would be the third Smithsonian museum focused on an ethnic or racial group, right? The first one, I think it's the Museum of the American Indian, which opened in 2004. And the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is set to be completed in 2015. Why the importance of having it there?
So Congressman Becerra joined us for this town hall we had, and he asked the audience how many people had been to the Smithsonian, the National Mall, and so many people in the audience raised their hands. And he asked how many people had gone to the Smithsonian Natural History Museum. And again, a large number of people raised their hands. And then he asked how many people had been to the Anacostia Smithsonian Museum. And maybe 2 people raised their hands. And he followed that up with location, location, location. You have to be on the National Mall. And the reason why we need this museum is because the Smithsonian is a brand, it's a network, a cultural institution that is known worldwide. No matter where you go, primarily in some of the larger metropolitan cities, if you talk about the Smithsonian, people know something. They get a sense that that's the U.S.'s network of museums. Mm-hmm. And the National Mall is where every tour bus eventually ends up. Mm-hmm. Our story, there was a report called Willful Neglect done more than 2 decades ago that said very clearly the Smithsonian has such an absence of stories of history, lessons, and exhibits reflecting the contributions of the Latino community. And from that, the Smithsonian Latino Center was created, which is charged with building some of these exhibits and touring them around the Smithsonian network of museums. The impact that we've had from General Galvez, who helped defend New Orleans, Louisiana, the stories of the Cuban woman who served as a spy during the Civil War, the fact that we've had Latinos, Mexicans, fight in every single major U.S. battle, U.S. Military confrontation, even before the U.S. Formally became the United States. And then the contributions between science and sports and arts, all of these things, there's not a single place that presents all of these stories together. There's not a single place that, well, and you know what, and not even to fault the Smithsonian, let me backtrack there for a minute, but they themselves have admitted they have several 100,000 exhibits that are in warehouses, a la Indiana Jones in the Temple, right? There's a big warehouse down there with hundreds of thousands of exhibits that they don't have any room to exhibit. So even if we continue to complain that we don't have more information and a whole exhibit on Guy Gabaldon, who was a Mexican-American who during World War II by himself was able to get the largest number of Japanese to surrender without firing a weapon once. I mean, an amazing story that was made into a movie. We can't even demand that they...
Was it played by Ben Affleck also, who's non-Latino?
I'm sorry?
Was it played by Ben Affleck also, who's non-Latino?
Yes, exactly. It was played by an Anglo actor, but, you know, that was
But it was a Latino in real life.
That doesn't change. But we can't do much. We can't even demand that they put these out there because there's no space. So an American Latino Museum will give us that location, that space, to present our stories and weave it into the National Mall. You know, people will go to the mall and see the Air and Space, and then they'll see the National Gallery of Art, and then side by side, you continue to go around that mall, and you'll run right into the American Latino Museum. If we have our way, it will be the Arts and Industries building, one of the oldest, if not the oldest building in the Smithsonian network of museums.
Joining me this morning is the executive director of the Friends of the National Museum of the American Latino, Estuardo Rodriguez, who's talking to us about this national movement to have a museum dedicated to the contributions of American Latinos in Washington, D.C. at the National Mall. Being from Los Angeles, the first time I went to Washington, D.C., I was in my early 20s, and everybody kept talking about the National Mall, and I went down there looking for an actual mall. It is not a mall, you guys. It is a big, large area with amazing museums and just really great statues. And it's right by, it's that whole area, right, Estuardo, with
yeah, it's right,
the reflecting
it's right next to the
pool.
Aunt Annie's pretzel place, right.
It's not
mall,
it's not a physical mall. I was looking for an actual mall, and it wasn't an actual mall. So in case you're going for the first time, just know that for a fact. What has been some of the support that you've been receiving when it comes to like celebrities and just the general public in general with support towards the museum?
So support comes in different ways. We started out reaching out to a number of the Latino leaders when we started this whole endeavor as an advisory board to help push forward the creation of the American Latino Museum Commission. So, you know, we had great support from NCLR's leadership and LULAC and MALDEF and several of the great people that have contributed a lot to the Latino leadership, Mari Carmen Aponte, Raul Aguirre, and on and on. Once the commission was created, they had named Eva Longoria to the commission and Emilio Stefan. We followed. Once that commission was done, we followed up with both of them, and they have become honorary board chairs of the Friends of the American Latino Museum. In terms of celebrity, we continue to get a lot of support from Rosario Dawson, Amy Garcia, Wilmer Valderrama. They have all taped some PSA for us, and those are all available on AmericanLatinoMuseum.org. The other kind of support that we get is corporate. We've had wonderful partnerships with Time Warner Cable. So, depending on how long it takes the cable guy to get to you to fix that, just know that the American Latino Museum is part of their priority. So let's give them a break.
Okay, great.
Just be a little more patient. Time Warner Cable, and we have a great board that also brings folks together from Facebook and Univision. So the corporate support is out there, but we are being very careful in how we approach corporate America as well. We're not at the capital campaign stage yet, but we will be soon. So all of the support that we get from celebrities that do these PSAs for us, or corporate that fund some of our town halls and convenings around the country, it's all very focused on the communications aspect, the educational outreach, bringing people together and getting them excited about this so that eventually they'll do one of two things. Either one, pick up the phone and call their congressman and say, damn it, we need this bill, sign it, be a co-sponsor, and let's get it through this year. Or two, here's $100, here's $25, here's whatever we can get financially, helps as well, because this costs a lot of money to continue to do the kind of outreach that we're doing at the level that we're doing it. We are doing this for the last 7 years of my firm. We've been doing this pro bono as part of a project that we believe in. But the cost and the overhead of the travel and the website maintenance and all the materials, and we did this large poster design contest, which hopefully you can still see on the website and get a copy of those posters yourself. There's so much more to make it real and tangible, and the fact that people know about this now is because we put the time, effort, and the money behind it. So we're very grateful to all our corporate sponsors.
For people that are listening to the show right now and want to get involved and want to know more and maybe possibly even contribute, like you just mentioned right now, how can they do that?
They can go to AmericanLatinoMuseum.org. You can go to that website. You can also see us on Facebook, American Latino Museum, on Facebook and Twitter. Follow us. We're always talking about what we're doing next and where we're going. You've got a number of options there on the website to get some information about the legislation that's currently on the Hill. The Smithsonian American Latino Museum Act is our priority right now. We're going to try to make sure to get that legislation through this year. So if you are in a district where your congressperson is a Democrat or Republican, of course, you can guess I need more help with the Republicans than the Democrats, but I'm not saying anything by that. If you happen to have a Republican member of Congress, I would love for you to take a look at that website and read about the bill and contact your member of Congress and let them know it would be a good idea for you to co-sponsor this bill.
So
our goal is to get this through the session.
That really is the most important ask right now before the end of the year, is that we need to get this bill passed, the bipartisan bill passed.
Yes, we need this bill to go through so we can move on to the next stage of building this museum. This stage is this piece of legislation, the Smithsonian American Latino Museum Act, does three things. One, it designates the Arts and Industries building on the mall. It designates it as a future site for an American Latino Museum. So we're just basically putting a placeholder out there. Number two, it commissions a study for 18 months. The Smithsonian will have to finalize a report as to what it would cost to turn that building. Not the outside, because the outside is historically protected. You can't change it. But the inside, what would you do? What would you need to do to turn that into an American Latino Museum on the inside? And then lastly, it provides the Smithsonian, or gives the Smithsonian, the authority over the entire initiative and the campaign to create an American Latino Museum. Right now, the Smithsonian does not do anything to create this museum. They're not allowed to get involved in any legislation or lobbying of any kind. So once this bill passes, it does give them some authority to really decide what to do next.
And this is H.R. Bill 1217.
Yes.
Perfect. So if you're listening and you want to call your member of Congress in support, just let them know that you support H.R. Bill 1217 in support of the Smithsonian American Latino Museum. Correct?
Yes, call them up and say, hey, I got this great bipartisan idea for you. And see if they bite.
Right. And I think it's a wonderful place where we can share collectively the history of Latino contributions in the United States that date back even before the U.S. was the U.S. and what we know it today.
Definitely. I think there's an opportunity for people to get involved in any way that they would like, financially, as an advocate or lobbyist on this bill, or simply just to share the information with your networks. We've got, as I said, a total between Facebook and Twitter and our listserv. We've got over 300,000 points of contact. But if you're talking, as you said at the beginning of this interview, 50 million some Latinos, 300,000 is just a drop in the bucket. So even if all you do is share, send forward, our website or Facebook links, we need to be hitting 1 million people by this time next year.
Well, we're going to try to make it happen. We mentioned 51.9 million Latinos currently live in the United States, and only 129,000 currently like the Facebook page. So we got to change those numbers. My guest this morning has been Executive Director of the Friends of the National Museum of the American Latino, Estuardo Rodriguez, who, if he had it his way, would probably have a full wing dedicated to Peruvian Americans. Yes,
that is my secret ulterior motive. You've called me out on it, but that's okay because people love Peruvian chicken and they like pisco sours, and no one's going to hate on me. No one's going to hate.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you again so much, Estuardo, for taking the time to talk to us and explain, what's happening on a national level and how we can get involved with the American Latino Museum.
Wendy, thanks so much for this opportunity, and to all your listeners for sticking with us through this interview. I'm really excited about getting any feedback and as much feedback as possible from your listeners. Thanks again for inviting me.
And for more information, you can simply go on their website at AmericanLatinoMuseum.org. I'm Wendy Carrillo. Thank you so much for listening. This is Knowledge is Power on Power 106. You can catch a podcast of the show available on my blog on power106.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Wendy Carrillo.